thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. It feels alright.
Good evening. Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the three amigos, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by George, by Steve, and by Mitch tonight. And we have an announcement to make. Due to work overloads and needing to spend a bit more time with his family, Keith Patterson has left the building. Not the first time he's done it, and the door is open for a return. But at this moment in time, he is now the MD of another few companies after recovering from his ill health last year. And everybody on the platform wishes Keith well. I'm sure he will still be popping into the chat from time to time. But thanks for everything you've done, Keith. Great to have you on the show pre-takeover and after the takeover, when I know you were slightly reluctant to come back. But you came back. You've been a great addition to the Amigos. But time to move on for you and time to move on for us now. So best wishes, mate. And as I say, the door is always open for a return when you can do it and when work can permit. As always.
Well said, Steve. I'd just like to add that fans will never know what to owe Keith Patterson.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George. And always something to talk about on this show. I've already seen Chantel's comment in the chat to say, please don't talk about tickets or downloading season tickets. I'm afraid all week we've said that's what we will be talking about tonight because we've got a 2-hour show. However, I am going to start with something left field, something which I saw on Twitter. Fun88 put this out. FC Copenhagen have banned fans from bringing signs into the Parken Stadium asking players for their shirts. Now, this seems to be a fairly recent thing in football, a modern day disease, you could call it. I didn't do it as a youngster. I'm sure George didn't. I'm sure Mitch and Steve didn't. It's a bit harsh, Steve, asking people not to bring bits of cardboard, begging for shirts. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not grown adults. Usually it's not anyway. It is kids who do it. And is this a bit like, somebody kicking a ball in the garden and saying, well, I'm keeping your ball and sticking it in the shed?
Which has happened a few times to all of us, I'm sure, at some point in our lives. No, I don't think it is, Steve. I think it... to be perfectly honest, I found it quite cringeworthy that dads would stand there with a bit of card with the kids. I understand why they were doing it, but it for me, it just smacked of desperation at times. I think kids. I find reluctant to say this because my girls are grown up now, but kids these days seem to think that it's almost a right to get things off people at times, and I just feel as though kids need to grow up a little bit quicker. I think parents have a bit of responsibility to make kids realize that everything's not going to come their way just because they hold up a bit of cardboard. I listened to a comedian on the radio earlier said that she would miss it. Sorry, it was on TV Sky this morning. She said she would miss it because excuse me, what she enjoyed about it was when a player threw the shirt into the crowd and it was just about to land on an 8-year-old's head and a 50-year-old would jump up and snatch it out of his hand. And she said she was going to miss those days. And you know what? I think there's quite a few people have witnessed that in the past. We've seen it at St. James's. We also saw somebody almost get into a bit of a fight when they took it off the adult and give it back to the kid. It's just maybe it's just a societal thing. Maybe it's just the way things are at the moment. But it's something that in this day and age, I think we need to move away from. Somebody also pointed out it's a bit like half and half scarves. Yeah, they love it or you hate it. And I'm a hater of half and half scarves. I'm a hater of all that sort of modern day. We're all pally, during a game, and we should all stand there and say, jolly ho, sorry about that, chaps. It's tribal, it's rivalry, and when it comes to the kit, just let the players get off the pitch, let them applaud everyone. There's nothing so special about you because you get handed a shirt, and don't expect it. It's not an entitlement, and kids will just go home very unhappy, and then we get filled up on social media with parents saying, isn't it terrible? My little Johnny took a sign-in and he never even got the shirt. What a horrible bloke Callum Wilson is, or Kieran Trippier, or whomever. And the next thing you know, what do we have? We have the players then being guilt tripped and having to have fans and parents trudge up to training grounds and they go, really sorry about that. You know, it just, for me, it's just over the top, completely over the top. Doesn't need to happen.
Okay, George, what's your thoughts on this? It's a, you know, some people in the chat seem to think it's a great idea, and that I love Dan's idea. He says, well done, Copenhagen. They should save them, give them to kids that need a boost, charities or on school visits, etc.
That's all right. But if you are in a sport, and bear in mind, you know, 70 odd years of supporting Newcastle when I started, you couldn't get shirts or go to enough money. You had to go to the shop and buy one if you even wanted to get near one. And even then, some shops where we looked to sell single shirts, certainly Stan Seymour was, because it spoiled a set. You know, he wanted 11 for a team. Go in and buy a team and he gear that, but it would cost you top dollar, mind. But getting separate shirts wasn't the thing. You know, you were lucky to get a separate shirt. I got my first separate shirt off a friend whose wife was a laundry woman at St James's Park, and the shirt, and the shirt got damaged in the ironing process, and she cut the sleeves off and said to her boss, well, that's no good, I can take it home. Well, it came home and it came to George Mitchell. So when I was just a kid, but that's the only way. Otherwise, you bought them own. The sport's changed though. It's in those days I wouldn't say it was a celebrity sport like it is now. Now we have the cult of the celebrity, the not the £1 million player, but the £200 million player now is the norm. And that celebrity brings lots of other things with it, and one of the things it brings is the kids who support them or want to be with them, want a piece of them. They want to own a part of that celebrity, and that's what it's about. I've got no problems with the kids doing it themselves, or the players doing it for kids that are actually in the ground, which some of ours do. I've noticed Miggy and Dan Byrne and one or two others pick people out and give them that. That's fine. I've got no trouble with that. But if the kids are carrying the thing, but when it starts to get to the adults, as Steve rightly says, it then gets to be a bit of a scramble, a pulling match, and you can see that, you know, the adults looking at each other with daggers just because their kid didn't get it and the other one did. So that bit needs to go. But in terms of the kids getting them, I'm afraid it's with me, because I think it's part of what I would say is the celebrity cult that we've got in the game now, because of the way players are almost adored, and anything that you can get that they've touched, that they've used, or anything like that. Is, I mean, look, I remember one game I was at with Steve, and I think it was Lascelles it was one of the championship games. Lascelles took his captain's armband off down below us in our stand. And it was an almighty scramble just for a bloody armband, not the strip. So, if they're going to do it, I don't mind them giving them to specific kids, or the kids ask and get refused. That's our line, but keep the adults out of it, because it then becomes a fighting match, and that does nobody any good. As the regards banning people, well, if that's what they've had some trouble. I've only seen one or two homemade banners with kids in St James's Park, but it became a big thing. I can see why they would want to ban it. But as I say, I can see why it's there, why it's a modern thing. I mean, God, getting a shirt. I mean, all I wanted to do was touch Jackie Milburn's shirt, not get one. I just wanted to be able to touch it and say I'd touched it. So yeah, there's a big difference now, and for me, it's this thing about celebrity, and where do you get celebrities in any show business thing, which football's rapidly becoming. People want a piece of it. Simple.
Somebody asked, my girlfriend's dad was Jackie Bell. Can George remember him?
I played a few games with Jackie Bell. Yes, Jackie Bell was a fantastic midfielder. Went through his whole career as a as a diabetic, having to take insulin, and a lovely lad, super lad, Jackie Bell. Jackie Bell had a good start to his career at Newcastle, and something went wrong, whether it was with him or with the management, I don't know. And then the next thing, he was transferred to Norwich City. He had a great career, great footballer, and I was amazed when he was allowed to leave. He was part of the Youth Cup winning team. Him and Ken Heals were two that I did actually play with regularly, because I used to get into the A and B teams at which they used to play in. And so I remember, as you gather, I remember Jackie very well. Lovely lad, great footballer.
Great stuff. Smith's out for Australia. For cricket fans out there, 71 he goes for. Australia still lagging behind, and this has been a great day for England, for you cricket buffs. Mitch, banning people with their cardboard signs begging for shirts. Good idea, bad idea?
I'd love to know what's driven Copenhagen to do it. I'd heard about it. I've not had a chance to really look into it this week, but I was aware of it. There's a number of different things here. If you're talking about just exuberance of children, kids who just think everything's going to be amazing and wonderful, because to look through the eyes of a child at the world sometimes is probably a refreshing way to do it. And if I hold my sign up, there's going to be a shirt appear from one of my favourite players. I wish life was always that easy. It isn't. But I don't mind kids aspiring to that. But there's other aspects to this that are a little bit more insidious. There seems to be, particularly with the advent of social media, a certain element of people who you can see where it's almost adults living their lives vicariously through their children. Yeah. And for clicks and likes on social media and dressing it up as many other things. But that's not particularly good, and it does seem to be there's a lot of adults involved in making these signs. The next level is I've read stories where people who are behind memorabilia selling are putting the kids up to go and bring the signs in for them to get hold of the memorabilia and then sell on various websites. And if you want a very tangible and real example of what that's like, look at what happens at some of the baseball games in the States when the fly balls and the home runs go into the crowd. You'd sometimes see adults absolutely flattening kids to get to the ball. Is that because they're the die-hard Kansas City Royal fans? Nah, it's probably because they've got a business whereby they're going to sell that ball on. And that's not nice. It leads to unnecessary incidents in the crowd that really are not pleasant, and kids shouldn't be involved with. So you do wonder, how much of that influence is pushed Copenhagen to do what they've got to do. But
there's an official statement, Mitch. The number of
right.
signs has increased significantly over recent seasons, and unfortunately, we have many children who get a bad experience from carrying a sign. At the same time, the players are put in a difficult situation because they cannot fulfill the wish and are perceived negatively because they have to say no to the many requests.
And that's right on the players. If players are being inundated with requests, there's only so much they can do. They've only got 2 shirts a game, usually.
I can see that one.
Mark, man. So that's an interesting aspect, that their players have obviously gone in to the owners and the manager and saying, "Hey, I can't hack this. I don't want to see this. Not on my watch. There's only me, and I'm trying very hard to do my best for everybody, but I cannot give everybody a shirt." And I think there's probably a number of different angles on this that Copenhagen, just somebody in there's pretty savvy, and they've picked up on it and gone, right, the best way to sort this out is that sign out. Because I'm not convinced all the signs are just the exuberance of kids being hopeful. No. Probably the smallest amount these days are. There's definitely, like I say, elements within that I've seen even within our fan base where parents are most certainly vicariously living their life through their kids and pushing the kids to the front of the whole thing, and I don't think that's healthy. That's just my personal opinion. And then also, if there is a level of people wanting memorabilia to then trade and using kids, whether that's here's a fiver, take this sign into the ground and let's hope we get a shirt out of it that we're going to make 100 quid out of, or what have you. That's that's wrong as well. There's a number of things there that obviously aren't working. And if you then have the players gone into Copenhagen management, and then that's filtered through to the rest of the club that we don't like the pressure we are feeling here at the minute, then fair play to Copenhagen. They're protecting everybody.
Yeah, well done to them. Eamon says, fair play to George. He's an encyclopedia of football knowledge as well as being a true gentleman. How are the lads?
You know what, right?
You're very kind.
You are getting a pastiche of what I grew up with. It's like you mention a player. Oh yeah, it's such and such. He was diabetic and he did this. And then in 1964, and it was like, how do you know all this? And I forgot what I had for breakfast yesterday. And he's unreal. Unreal, man.
This week I've been
too kind.
I've been off this week, so me and George have made some major inroads to those were the days, because as I predicted, the 1980s is hitting the right niche with people. People who watched the show, the demographic of the platform are all from 70s, 80s and beyond. And the 80s has proven to be a popular series. So George and I have rattled off as many as we can this week. It's been fantastic. And I thought I'd be contributing to these shows. I've got to be honest, I just sit and listen. The only time I chip in is if I've got something to correct, which is very rare, I have to say, but absolutely superb. Great stuff. And honestly, you'll enjoy them. The next one's 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. But honestly, you will love these. Really, really will. And you're lucky to have George as your dad, Mitch. You really are.
Oh, don't, man. I am here, you know.
Top man. Okay. I'm going to try and swerve the tickets for now. I can see Mitch is chomping at the bit to get into this. Let's talk football. Mick Gilchrist in. He says, what's the panel's thoughts on pre-season matches so far? Formations, changes, young'uns getting a chance? All very interesting to me. Mitch, will give you the first shot at this one.
Yeah. And he's doing what he did last season. He's playing them hard and he's training them hard, but he's not then overworking in pre-season in the actual matches. He could have loaded the bench the other night with more players, and he chose not to. And what he is doing is he's chucking some of the kids into the mix and see who swims. And that's what he did with young Anderson. He chucked them into the mix and said, "Can you swim? Do you look like you should be part of this squad?" And I think, yes, that's why he didn't go out on loan again last season, because he looked like he was part of the squad. This is where Miley's got a chance here. Are we going to send Miley out on loan, or are we going to keep him around because we've got so many more games and so many more competitions potentially? He's probably already made a case for not going out on loan and sticking around, because when you take young talent like that and put them in with better players, sometimes they blossom. And the place to find that out isn't pre-season now, not the first 6 weeks of the season. It's now. Can you swim? I'm sorry, like young Lewis Miley made an £120 million midfielder look bloody ordinary the other night for me. You couldn't tell the difference between, the kid still finding his way in the game and somebody who's had a hell of a lot of money lashed on him. And I don't think he's the what he is that everybody's made him out to be. Certainly not on that performance. I think he's rope-a-dope at Aston Villa, because we play them so early. He's not going to show his hand against them. That was a poker game, that one. Let's play a back three and chuck everything left, right, and centre, because he also knows Emery's a student of the game like he is. And so he's not going to give him any clues about how we're going to set up on opening day against them. Not a chance. And I think that was smart. That was clever. He's using the squad in a very intelligent way, and he's using this time when he's got everybody together. And I know I've seen somebody expressing concerns about, they're doing open training and it's this and it's that, and how can it be as intense? I'm telling you right now, I'm quite sure when it away from the camera, it's more intense than you realise. And I think a lot of the players look like they've taken their instructions about what they needed to do while they were away over the summer and taken them in the right spirit and done what they've been told. Very impressed with some of the players who've come back. There's nobody who's really come back looking, but certainly nobody's come back looking like they've piled a few pounds on and they've enjoyed the summer way too much. In fact, everybody's come back hungry by the looks of it to me. And we go forward together as we always do. I think it's been, certainly from the playing side of things, this trip has been, I think, very useful. I think the only thing Howe would like is to have liked a couple more of the potential signings in already to have them in with this group now. But you know what? I wish it was always that easy, and it's not Championship Manager, is it?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Miley as well, I think, was mentioned this week in the press conference that he's going to keep him. He's not going to loan him out. He's going to be part of the squad.
Mate,
So,
it makes perfect sense because he looks at home as part of the squad, just like Anderson did. And so if they look like they're going to that part of the squad, keep them because they develop better playing around some of these players. And the challenge to them is, this is your teammate. Can you say to me you're better than him, and I will drop you in the side, because he's proved he'll do that. It's already seen. We've got this history now that if you're good enough and you've earned your place, he will play you. And I think that's fantastic.
Okay. George, what's your thoughts on the pre-season so far? Another game tonight.
Well,
Eddie Howe's just given a press conference. I haven't got updated on that.
Great.
So anybody
like,
sees
like
it, give
Neil
us a shout in
says,
the chat.
he's doing what I'm delighted to see him do. He's not showing his hand for the big games. He's experimenting, and he's having a go at other things like the back three at the back and all that sort of thing. And he's giving the young'uns a head. I mean, the pre-season so far, if you start with the game at Gateshead, Elliot Anderson's the star for me. I mean, my goodness, it's the lad who was just old enough to get in the squad last year. He now looks a fixed member of the squad, and at Gateshead he started to run things, and you can see it in some of the other games he's been in. And then along comes this lad Miley, who's a nice tall kid. And he's just as good. And in fact, the one area where I think Miley's probably a little bit better, his touch is fantastic for a kid his age, no doubt about that. So we're seeing all of that, and Eddie's seeing all of that, and it's kind of a warning to the others to who Emery. He played his full team against us the other night and got nowhere. Well, they were good for 20 minutes, and after that, we could have took the game, no doubt about that, for me anyway. And the other night as well against Chelsea, when they needed to put their foot down, they seemed as though they could put their foot down and have a real go and get back into the game and fight, and everything I'd want out of a pre-season for trying things out. It's no good trying them out in the first 3 or 4 games of the league, because they'll come a cropper, and he's doing that now. It's been a fascinating watch, and how they've got it all together with the fans and all the rest of it has been very impressive. And I agree with Neil that the open training sessions are a PR exercise, I think, more than anything. They'll do their training when the cameras are switched off and the fans are away home to bed, I think, is what will happen. I can't help but smile when one of the things we did this morning with those were the days, Steve. We had 8 friendlies before we even kicked the ball in the first division that year. I mean,
that was bonkers. We had 8 friendlies before the season started. Yeah. Then we had at least 2 in the middle of the season. 1 between 3,
yeah.
And then we had 3 at the end.
3 at the end, yeah, and 48 games on top of that.
Absolutely.
And so what we're seeing now is up to date, modern, and I think scientific. I've got to say, I think they're applying sports science to it now as well. So the short answer is, yeah, I think pre-season's been great so far. The other positive is Harvey Barnes look like he's fit as a butcher's dog. While he's been waiting for this transfer, he hasn't been sitting on his backside doing now because you can see the way he moves. Yeah, and as Neil says, it doesn't look like he's been eating too many pies either.
No, definitely not. Kev did say, Blue Rhythm Boy, that training was only certain parts of training were open to fans. Yeah, 100%. So George is right in what he says. Yeah, Steve, pre-season, I mean, there've been some late nights. I've seen a few people walking around with their matchsticks in their eyes after staying up and watching these games. Tonight, obviously, the next game is slightly earlier again, like the first game was. So you'll be up till 2:00 if you decide to stay and watch it. I've enjoyed them, Steve. I've enjoyed them, and I the bottom line is, you can lose all your friendlies as long as you win your first game. But for me, I've enjoyed watching what he's looking for, what he's looking at, and just trying these different players. And I see in the chat, this happened again last night. A lot of people saying we shouldn't be bigging up Lewis Miley too much. It'll affect him, like a bit like back in the old days when people called Bogey the new Gaza. But this is different. This is different. Phil Foden at Manchester United with Pep's a prime example. Keep him around the big players, keep him around the first team, give him the opportunity. Anderson already looks a better player. He looks bigger, he looks stronger, he looks more confident in these friendlies. And for me, it's exciting to see that, potentially we might have two youngsters in and around the first team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Steve. I'm just glad I'm listening to you and not taking heed of all the experts on social media who were convincing us all that the only way for Miley and Anderson to get anywhere was to be loaned out for the next season or even the next two. Just shows you, doesn't it? I mean, football, we've always said it's a game of opinions, but some opinions are completely wide of the mark, aren't they? Yeah, I mean, let's take Anderson first. I mean, Anderson has obviously been around the team for a season. He got better as the season went on. Last year, he got opportunities, even though some of them were limited. I don't think Eddie really knew a position for him. He tended to bring him on and play him wide, and that was about it. But what the lad's done is the lad's obviously gone on not only a growth spurt, but a fantastic fitness regime because, I mean, like you say, he's bulked up, but he's bulked up with muscle. He looks stronger, probably because somebody's told him. And, let's face it, that's the job of the fitness and conditioning team to say, if you want to get anywhere in the Premier League, you've got to be fit. You've got to be strong. You just look at Jacob Murphy for that. I mean, there's a player that's ribbed now compared to a skinny little runt, if you'll pardon my expression, that he looked when he first signed for the club, and it just shows you the benefit of being fit and strong and doing the right sort of conditioning, eating the right way and looking after yourself the right way can pay dividends. And I'm sure that Anderson has learned from that. I think Miley's a slightly different type of player. I think he's more slight. In terms of build, yes, he's only 17, and we've seen there that Eddie said that he didn't think it was the right time for him to go on loan. Absolutely, he's spot on. It's not the right time. The lad comes from a family of other footballers, other lads that are on the books at the club. Sounds like they're a very grounded and rounded family. Mum and dad sitting there looking after his every step. He can only benefit from being with his family during the season, and turning up at the training ground and being around good players and then going home to a good family environment. That's rather than, as you've heard in the past, you look back at Keith Gillespie, for example, who said, when he went to Man United, he was put in digs and locked in the room. All he could think of doing was either going out clubbing or, more importantly, because all they could do was then suddenly go into the betting shop in the afternoon and the evening and this type of thing. And that's what happens, it's a slippery slope. And I think Miley will only benefit from being with his family, and that's a big plus for the club. And I think Eddie Howe plays a lot of substance on that. And it's great to know that we've got people in the club that are thinking about that for the players, not just thinking, oh, well, he's not going to get anywhere, I'm going to hire him out. It's interesting you talk about the friendly games. I mean, George, in those days as well, when we had 7 or 8 friendlies before a season, we also had a reserve team and players played in the reserves. Yeah. While the first team was playing, the reserves were away when the first team was at home. And then we played you could go and watch the reserves in the afternoon on a Saturday when the home team the first team were playing away. The Northern Combination or whatever it was called, Northern
Combination, the teams were First Division, Central League, Northern Alliance, Northern Combination, Northern Intermediate League, and Newcastle Junior League. That's all the teams that were getting players. But I was going to say, the first games that used to happen back in my era, before I started to play at St James's myself, was first team versus reserves, possibles versus probables. And he used to get the first team forwards against the first team defence and vice versa until they used to play 2 or 3 games until they sorted what the first 11 was about.
Yeah.
And I think I've got some pictures somewhere of the first team in the black and whites and the second team in the whites playing each other.
Yeah. I think the other key to these friendlies that we're having, if we want to call them that, this little mini tournament in America, is that we're part of the Premier League. We're part of the Premier League tour of North America. It's part of the promotion of the Premier League, as well as Newcastle United, Aston Villa, Chelsea, and Brighton. It's part of getting the message out there, and building a fan base, but also building a TV in terms of an audience. And fans who perhaps normally wouldn't have bothered watching Newcastle games are going along, they're seeing it and they're thinking, oh, this is an interesting team. We're interacting with the fan base. This looks like an interesting way to go. And you're dead right, Steve. We didn't show Eddie didn't show his hand to Unai Emery, but Emery showed his hand to him, didn't he? My God, I mean, they went off like a rocket, didn't they? 2-0 up after 10 minutes. But after that, boy, did a team fade, and I think what's also interesting, I had this conversation with John earlier when I was down at the soccer school, and we're saying what was interesting is he played a totally different team in the second half. Instead of ruining a game with constant substitutions through the game, he basically changed the team in the second half, and we gave players a good run out. It gave us an opportunity, and it's given Eddie Howe an opportunity and the rest of the coaching team to basically put into practice some of the ideas that they've cemented over the summer. We talked about it a few shows ago where we said, we expect that when it comes to Champions League, we might have to play a different style of football. We're going to have to be patient as fans because we might not go in for the 4-3-3 with an attacking phase when we're playing away and in Prague or Budapest or up in Norway or wherever it happens to be for some of these Champions League games where points are more important than anything. But at the same time, you've got to keep a clean sheet because it can have an impact on where you finish. The goal difference can make a difference between qualifying into the conference if you finish third and not qualifying at all, as Celtic have shown on numerous occasions over the last few seasons, and Rangers as well. It's all well and good getting into the Champions League. The main thing is after that is that you start to do something that can sustain that in the years to come. And also, wouldn't it be great if we got into the next phase of the Champions League? And once you're into that, who knows where it can lead to? So we're a professional football club. We're starting to do things professionally. I'm not going out on loan, either Anderson or Miley. It means Shola's got a bit more free time, hasn't he?
Mother, she's off to see a band tonight. Does that mean I'll miss the great ticket debate? Well, I'm trying to avoid it at the moment. I'm sure we'll come to it at some point. We've got tweet of the week first. So many tweets and so little time, but I'll try and get through as many as possible. Barbie launched this week. Here's Ken. I can see these becoming a regular feature now. And who did this? Wow, amazing. Yeah, the Wrath of Khan there, reenacted Barbie style. The premiere of Barbie was in Liverpool. And as you all know, I do like a Star Wars tweet, and here is our Star Wars tweet this week. Only a Star Wars fan will see it.
Certainly can.
Very good. The Millennium Falcon there. Star Trek as well. When you die, never challenge death to a pillar fight. You'll have to deal with the repercussions.
Oh, dear.
Frankie Moses.
Liverpool as well. Following recent results, you're cordially invited to the dinner dance. Starter is self-pity soup. Main course, humble pie with sauerkraut, a bit of German dish. Dessert, hard cheese and sour grapes. And wine, well, it's shell wine. It's a hard-to-swallow vinaigrette.
Shite wine.
That's it. Well done. Roberto De Zerbi and Thomas Frank. Brilliant stuff. Thanks for sending us that. After Tottenham owner Joe Lewis was indicted in the US for insider trading, fans celebrate the club's first major silverware in 15 years.
Very clever.
And plan underway, says Stephen Kennedy, to save Spurs this season. There's the guys from Toy Story on their way. Sunderland have jumped on the bandwagon after Newcastle announced their new fan zone. Sunderland announced theirs.
There's a seagull inside each one.
Probably. And Kylie seems to be enjoying herself, but not half as much as the bear.
Yeah.
Jesus wept.
Yeah,
Time for a bit singing, everybody. Whoa, we're halfway there. Whoa, living
Lemon
on a pear.
Lemon on a pear.
Lemon on a pear. Oh, God.
When plumbers have kids,
Very good.
and you wouldn't want to find this in your KFC, would you?
Oh my God.
Dear me.
Now, this one probably has a lot of us nodding in agreement.
Yes.
The biggest lie known to man. Anybody had any experiences with them?
Oh, yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, me.
Not
me
a sharp
too.
knife won't fix.
Nothing a sharp knife won't fix. I went to a party last night. Blimey, what a hangover I've got.
Certainly.
And do not eat the large white mints.
Oh God.
Oh, dear me.
And following on in the Blackpool postcards routine, Bob, you've got to see this guy. Could be a twin. Trust me, Miss Blake, no one will ever notice you're wearing a hearing aid.
Probably right, yep.
And if you've got a dog at home, you'll be able to
Oh,
look at this.
Oh,
very
dear.
true. Good one, that Andy.
Absolutely.
And despite Eric's best efforts, no one guessed Bangkok.
Oh, dear.
That was not a mating call, a bit of toilet humour here.
Oh, dear.
Followed up by this one. What the hell, dude? I've been drinking out of that thing. This is the life. I'm never travelling economy again. Well, it seems your weight is just perfect. You just happen to be 11 feet too short.
Yeah, I know how he feels.
And I can't believe I fell for that scam. Well, face it, Kevin, you're a band-aid. You were bound to get ripped off.
God.
More toilet humour. Aim like a Jedi, not like a stormtrooper. That's brilliant, isn't it? Great design, that. And told the bus driver what a way to make a living. He didn't get it. Walking 925. Cat's eyes removed. Somebody put RSPCA informed at the bottom. And Stephen Kennedy says, is this offer better than the NUFC membership deal? Please discuss.
Almost certainly.
And this one for Tweet of the Week. What scares you the most? The unstoppable marching of time that is slowly guiding us all towards an inevitable death, replied one child. But his homework. This is gel on a fingertip. If you saw something else you messed up in the head, we need to hang out.
Oh, doctor. Oh, doctor.
And when you forgot to knock before you opened the fridge.
Oh, Jesus.
We plan to cut all homeless people in half by 2025, say the Conservatives. David Lass says it seems a bit extreme.
Does, doesn't it? Crikey.
And this one, you need to squint, lads. When you see it, you'll realise you've got a dirty mind. Just look through the And people in 1997, when a robotic voice on the radio said around the world 130 times. Last few. Be wary when your wife spends a lot on gardening gear and it mainly shovels and rakes. My wife took up gardening. I wonder what she's going to plant. Thanks, Vince. And whilst watching a close run horse race, the commentator announced that there will be a photo for second place. What a thoughtful gift. A nice way to make up for the disappointment of not winning. A couple of political ones. Terrible stand of the spelling in our media.
Oh, Terry.
And sorry to say it, but Toon is giving us nothing at number 10. Hashtag Lionesses. Neither is Sunak, said Byron Skill.
Very good.
Tweet of the week from Michael. Simply Wank, Salon and Spa. And another one from Andy. I paid up front for a carpenter to make me a double bed, and the bugger's only gone and done a bunk. It's just one thing on top of another.
God.
Oh, dear.
You know when you take that perfect photo?
Oh,
Cheers, Ian. And caution, bollards will rise. Well, we're worried about AI. The bollards are planning a global revolution, says Ian. Doctor says, I have to cut out drinking.
That's good, that one. Excellent.
And we'll have often seen these in games. Hyde United, starting 11. A trialist, B trialist, C trialist, D trialist, E trialist, F trialist, G trialist, H trialist, Jordan Lazenby, and trialist I. John Trialist commented, I'm a proud father.
Proud father.
Excellent. Excellent. Greg, Ian. That's a Gregorian chant.
Oh, dear me.
dear me, aye.
My wife and I are taking up carpentry as a hobby. A neighbour said, I didn't know you were carpenters. I said, we've only just
begun. Oh, dear me.
I'd like to buy him up with chocolate chips. Sorry, we only take cash.
Hey.
And why do you go to bed in a full suit of armour? It's the best way to get a good night's sleep.
Oh, dear me.
Last few. This one, to the barber and Morley who did this to my unaccompanied 13-year-old, may I suggest you do not give stupid haircuts to minors without an adult present. This is ridiculous. Health and safety, well, it wasn't in the window in the 1960s.
That's true.
That's it.
And I'd like to know the backstory, said Ian.
Yeah.
Who on earth is buried in there? Number 2 is Zara, who supplies us with many a tweet. Breaking tornado in Milan, Italy. Still need Mackems, though. And the winner this week, how not to wear a Disney sweater. Bearded Meatball, absolutely brilliant, mate. So many I did manage to squeeze in. I'll try and squeeze them in next week. We'll get inundated week after week after week. But thank you very much for them. That is Tweet of the Week. Greg the Hutch says, just want to give thanks to Steve Hasty for suggesting everyone get ready for the upcoming Amazon doc by watching We Are the Geordies. I never got around to watching it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So there we go.
Excellent. Good.
Well
Greg.
done. Well done.
All right. I'm going to have to discuss this because it's in the public domain. It's Steve Bruce's interview, not tickets. John says, did you guys listen to the Steve Bruce interview? Steve, it was another interesting interview, another podcast. Mark Byers says thoughts on Steve Bruce's latest comments that he recommended Eddie Howe to the Newcastle board, as well as Stephen Gerrard. Blokes in cloud cuckoo land. Yeah, I mean, this is an interview essentially which is doing the rounds, an adapted version. Steve, what's your take on it? He's been very sincere. He says he's the reason he did it is because of his, because he wanted to save the club, and he was the only negative at the club, and he felt it was the best if he left, and he recommended Eddie Howe and Stephen Gerrard. That's
a bit he got right, isn't it? There's nothing else to say, really. That's the bit that he got right. I mean, it's interesting that he recommended Eddie Howe when some of us in this little quartet knew that Eddie Howe had already been up at Newcastle quite a few times. We know that Newcastle had spoken to Eddie Howe. We know that Eddie Howe had spoken to Newcastle. We know that Eddie Howe was here when Celtic came down to interview him as well, because Celtic were interested in him. We heard an awful lot during that season, and that was before the takeover had actually happened, or before it had been announced, but before and around at the time that some of us knew that it was going to happen, because we got wind of it in the July, if you remember rightly, courtesy of someone who's no longer on the show. But he'll be back, because you'd be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He'll be back. Don't worry about that. Talking about Keith, not Steve Bruce, so don't panic. But yeah, I mean, this has become, you know, they've interviewed him. I'm not really bothered. It's not. I'm not going to lose any sleep over what Steve Bruce has said. That's his opinion. I don't know really what was going through Steve Bruce's mind at the time. I don't know whether, you know, a lot of it could be, you know, he could be sincere in what he's saying. I bumped into Steve Bruce and Jesmond Dean walking the dog round about that particular time. And he was, you know, he was charming. He was polite. He came to the food banks before one of the games, one of the pre-season friendly. We're talking about friendlies again. He came down, and it was interesting because at the time he'd been going through an awful rough time, and fans and kids and parents flocked round to get their photographs taken. And that I actually saw a weight lifted off his shoulders within 10 minutes of him standing there. So I think Steve Bruce was always caught up in a bit of a dichotomy. You know, in terms of his relationship or lack of relationship with the supporters, because until then, I don't think he interacted with anyone. He started interacting, ironically, when he knew that his days were numbered, when he knew the club was being sold, and when he knew that he was recommending various people for what was ostensibly his job. And, you know, he walked away with a pretty packet as well. He got his terms bought out, you know, his contract bought out. He did all right by it. I just hope that he's happy. I hope that he's enjoying his retirement and playing golf in Portugal or wherever he is. I'm sure he's far more relaxed than he was when he was at Newcastle, because let's face it, he seemed to have the world and the weight of it on his shoulders at times. And it's not I suppose it's not his fault that in terms of being a manager for Newcastle United, he wasn't successful.
Yeah, George, he's he's entitled to go out and do interviews, and he's entitled to a life. And like I've got to agree with Steve's sentiments. I wish him all the best, you know, and I just wish he would, you know, knock the narrative on the head, you know, that, you know, when especially when it's in the public domain, that we know that the owners had Emery in the, you know, in their sights, and then Eddie Howe, you know, I've shared the story, you know, Eddie Howe put his CV in, you know, he put his CV on the first day. I mean, it was only months after he decided not to go to Celtic because of, you know, the fact that they wouldn't take his coaching staff with him. So, Celtic didn't agree to the coaching staff going. So, you know, Howe put his own CV in. He didn't need a recommendation from Steve Bruce, George.
No, neither anybody else. And it's a hard one for me. As a fellow human being, I feel sorry for Steve Bruce. I've got to be honest, because he's delusional. I mean, my first instinct was to send him the name and address of a good psychiatrist, because the bloke needs help. I'm sorry. So much of that is just out of the ether. It's not real, and that can't be healthy for the poor lad. And then I think back to a personal story about Steve Bruce. Well, I'll tell you now. I've started because I whet your appetite. Wallsend Boys Club invited quite a lot of people who were ex-Wallsend Town players to a function, into a charity match, and we're all standing around, and we're all standing having some were having a cup of coffee, and others were having a glass of beer. And in this assembled company, the circle that I was standing in, were all centre halves at school, Marky, for Wallsend. And there was Steve Howie, Steve Bruce, lad called Chamberlain, who went to Sheffield Wednesday, and somebody else, and I was on the end. And they were all standing, and somebody across the room shouted, "There's the best number 5 to come out of Wallsend." And everybody looked round, and we're all looking at Steve Bruce. And Brian Watson talked to Peter Beardsley about a man called Brian Watson, because Brian Watson saved Peter Beardsley's career. Brian Watson said, "No, you silly buggers, him." And he was pointing at me. And Bruce was next to us. Sorry to blow me own trumpet, but what that lad is saying bothers me more than anything, because it's so delusional. It's no good just saying he's telling fibs, because it's just not real. And yeah, the notion that he recommended Eddie Howe, I mean, everybody in the ante knows that couldn't possibly have happened. And I don't believe our owners would say, "We're sacking you, Steve. What do you think about Eddie Howe?" Nah, it doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. So in many ways, I feel a bit sorry for Steve Bruce, because Whether the pressure of what happened to him at Newcastle's got on top of him or not, I don't know. The other thing is what he doesn't get hold of is that despite being told by far more eminent professional people than I am to do with football, that to change training methods and make sure that they were training, because it was sneaking out of the training ground. I mean, the left back we had on loan from Spurs, what did they call him?
Rose.
Danny
Rose.
Danny Rose was telling the world on social media that they were only training 3 days a week. And I used to get into some horrendous rows with people on Facebook and that when I was to repeat that, and they say, he's a liar and you're a liar and all that sort of thing. Well, it turns out he wasn't. I mean, they were so unfit when Howe came, it was untrue. And yet he ignored all of that and progressed on. No, I just wish he would stop and get himself some help would be my advice.
Mitch, it just seems to be a regular thing, doesn't it? We just parked him, we forgot about him. But he did his media interviews afterwards, which is fair enough. But he just come back and done another one, hasn't he? That's all it is.
I was going to watch it now, just to say that I've had enough of his revisionist history.
Yeah,
because that's what he does. He delivers a revisionist history based on how he would like to be perceived. If you want an aspect to compare it to, watch Jamie Rubin's podcast that he did a couple of weeks ago. I think that tells a very, very different story without ever pointing fingers. What we know about Eddie Howe and his ins and outs from Newcastle prior to the takeover, if anybody recommended him to the board when they were looking for a new manager, it would have been Lee Charnley. It sticks in my craw to say that, but if anybody did that, it certainly wasn't Bruce. It might have been Lee Charnley, though, because my understanding was he'd been in twice, and they were very impressed. But the second time, not only did he stop off at Newcastle, he was then chauffeured up to go to speak to Glasgow Celtic. And that didn't happen. I'm quite bloody glad it didn't. But, you know, Bruce has this desire to alter how things worked for him at every club he's been to, including the Magnus. Some of my red and white mates, you know, some of the things they say about him, it's almost word for word what we had. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And whenever he goes away from somewhere, he has this desire to revise the history to his own little slant. So he comes out looking like some sort of good guy in the middle of it all. So yeah, I probably wouldn't watch it, to be fair, because I just cannot be doing with his desperation to make himself a victim.
Yeah. Look, wish him all the best. Good luck to him. I think he's had a bit of tutoring on the old interview front as well, like, because he was definitely speaking in a different way, a very composed way. And I think a lot of people in the chat agree. You know, we all know that he was on a decent pay deal if he was sacked. The contract that Bruce gave him wasn't. I think this is the reason he gets a lot of jobs. They employ him because he's cheap to employ, but the back end, when he gets sacked, is where he gets his money. Clever, sensible way to do business if you know you're going to get sacked.
And that breed of English manager that everybody waxes lyrical over, and they should get so many more chances. We've also fallen foul of another one that does exactly the same in Sam Allardyce.
Yep.
Look
he's back in the paper tonight. He's back in the paper.
Is he really?
He was at Newcastle. It was the right job at the wrong time.
Oh, bollocks.
Right.
Dear God. You're talking to the lads from Leeds here. They regret getting him on board, because when they look at what he took out of that club and what they've had to do to make their FFP work since they got relegated, they've got about £100 million worth of players out on loan now, because they can't sell them. They've got to get some of their wages off the book, and they're still paying half the wages on some of them. But they've just got to get rid to try and make the books balance. And yet he walked away with something like £5 million for relegating them. You know, it's unreal. Unreal.
No doubt about it. Halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com or telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces Handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. A big thanks also to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. They're an agile and dedicated workwear provider. Welcome back as well to United Travel. They are a UK coaches firm and they are based in the Northeast. They've got 2024 tours and you can contact them on 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Email info@unitedgrouptravel.com and they've got a website which is unitedgrouptravel.com. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. Big thanks to them for their sponsorship. Big thanks as well to Media Arts, and they supply all the video technology. If you want to become a member and get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, then get your smartphone and put it over this QR code. It will take you straight to the membership pack. It's a £25 one-off fee. You can also go to NUFC Matters website and search membership pack to book today. If you want to help the channel, then subscribe to it by hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumb up under the video to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. Don't forget, we help the food bank on this channel. If you want to do so virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. The Alan Shearer raffle is back on. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket, win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball. Enter today at nufcmatters.com. Blue Rhythm Boy asks a question here. He just says, Steve, Mitch and George, what memorabilia do you have? We know George has his rattle. Okay, Steve, any memorabilia?
Football memorabilia or just memorabilia in general?
Football memorabilia, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, my prized possession is something I got off Bobby Cowell's grandson. And that was a ball from the 1983-84 season. And it is the official Minerva match ball from the Cardiff City game at home, signed by both teams. That's my prized possession. And I'm not a collector of Newcastle United memorabilia, I've got to be honest, but that is me prized possession, I guess, as far as football is concerned.
Great. I've got a shirt signed by the majority of the still surviving Fairs Cup squad, plus Malcolm MacDonald, slap bang in the middle of it, for good measure. It came courtesy of a gentleman that we all know, Malcolm Dix, who got it signed at one of the Fairs Club events for me. And that's the sort of thing Malcolm would do. He was always willing to help out. I just gave him the shirt and said, "If you get a couple of signatures on it," and he filled it up. I think every single player that was at that event from the Fairs Club squad, as I say, that was still alive, signed it, which I suppose that in itself is a little bit of Newcastle history, not just memorabilia, to have something like that. I've got a Hatton Ben Offa shirt. I've got the shirt behind me, which is signed by Keegan and Terry Mack and Chrissy Waddle, Peter Beardsley. They did two. I gave one to Food Bank and I kept one for myself. Gave it to the Food Bank so that they could raffle. I've had various bits of memorabilia passed through my fingers by fans who have asked me to pass it on for auction, which we've done over the years. But I think the Fairs Cup one. And in terms of not football, two books that I got autographed in 1980 by one of my all-time heroes, Bruce Springsteen.
Classic. Brilliant. George, people know you've got the rattle.
Well, I've got it here, down by my side.
What else? Anything else?
It's always here. Yes, I've got, well, as well as the rattle that my dad took to the cup finals, I've got his rosette and things like that, which are very personal, which my mother made, actually. She made a stack of rosettes for the lads going to Wembley. And so I've got that. And a personal note, it's not mine, it belongs to Neil. There's a football in our loft which is signed by the team which played, and it's got Gaza, Waddle, Beardsley, etc., all on that ball, which is hard one to find. So I was doing when I was chairman of the Wallsend Sports Council, I was doing a fair thing, and we had a raffle, and that was one of the balls that somebody gave with a raffle to raise some money for the Sports Council, and they gave away quite a few, and when the thing was over, there was a couple left, so I brought one home for my son. So, and that's in the loft now. Apart from that, no, I don't have a lot of memorabilia. I used to have millions of programs, of course, as Neil well knows, but with shifting from one house to another, you lose bits and bobs. I'm sure if I dug in the loft, I could find other things. But they're the three things that come to mind off the top of my head. And the other memories I have is about being involved with the club and the trips we've had away. I mean, can I say something? I had a laugh at one of the straps I seen Tommy Lynch say about energy drinks on the chat, and I'd never experienced energy drinks. I didn't know what an energy drink was. I didn't know what they tasted like. Well, we went to Everton for the Hatton Ben Arthur winning goal game, and I was driving as usual, and we're standing in Stanley Park waiting for the traffic to run down. And the lads were sort of getting ready, chucking up the cool box with beers and all the rest of it. And I happened to yawn when I was leaning against the front of this big vehicle. And it was Neil's friend, Frecky, said to us, "Have one of these, man." He stuck I don't know if it was a Red Bull, don't know what it was, but it was an energy drink. So I downed it, and I said, "Oh, that's bloody lovely. I have another one." So I had another one. I'll tell you what, that car came home 100 miles an hour up the A1. I was wide awake. In fact, the same lad, as we're getting halfway up the A1, all of a sudden he goes, "Yes." And he did that because he'd won the lottery. They all had a lottery about how fast I would go in the car. On the way home, they thought I didn't know, and I did know. And Frecky went, "Yes." I just touched 115 miles an hour.
My God. Dear God. What a class.
We recognised that my dad had rather leaden right foot. and we'd had a little five reach on what the maximum speed he did would be.
Classic.
Absolutely brilliant.
Well,
Mark Byers
put it down to the Red Bull.
He's got a signed Keegan shirt as his favourite piece, as well as a piece of the
Smashing.
tarmac from the road where Tupac was shot in Las Vegas.
Sorry, I have got another thing, Steve.
2 seconds, George. Northumberland Geordie says, "I used to have a pair of Johnny Wilkinson Predators. He was 2 sizes smaller than me, and I wore them to play football. I was in agony with them." Go on, George.
I've got a square metre of St James's Park in my back lawn. I forgot all about that.
Oh, God, I remember when they did that. Yeah, I remember when they did that.
Yeah.
Mitch, I mean, obviously you're living abroad these days. Have you got anything out there?
Not a lot, no. To be fair, a lot of the stuff that I did have went all out. When I moved out to Dubai, I sold a lot of stuff from the garage, and when you become expat and you do stuff like that, you start to realise that some of it's just stuff, it's just things. And I'll tell you honestly, the best memorabilia I have are the stories and the people that made the stories as we've gone along the way. Be that away Derby losing 4-1, yet feeling like we'd won 10-0. Be that Leicester away that same season. Be that the Grimsby away the following season that took me up. Be that all the tales we could tell with my dad driving a bloody people carrier full of drunken idiots and obviously enjoying having a good laugh at way along the way. Be that the lads and lasses from Skunkers, be that the people like Jamie Fender, yes, he is related. Les in concert, Bruni, people that I've been literally here, there, and everywhere with. And of course, you lot, who I've known for God knows how long.
Too long.
And we've done everything from trying to orchestrate people to buy the club, to try and make the club see how they could be better and bigger. And we've clashed with people along the way, people who are still would debate all day long with, though, because everybody still wants the same thing. That's my memorabilia. It's in there and it's in there. And that for me is what makes our club special, is that, I see people saying in the chat who, Tom Lynch, really good one, when we were setting up the trust. When people used to talk about Deschamps being the water carrier in a fantastic French side, Tom, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, by God, you were a hell of a water carrier here. You were there. You did everything. You turned up. You wrote quizzes. You carried speakers. You gave John Gibson lifts in cars and God knows all sorts else. And you were always there, mate. And it's amazing to see you in the chat here. And I can name 1,000 other people along the way as well, who all deserve what we have now. But it also doesn't mean we stop. It also doesn't mean that we still continue to want whoever the custodians in Newcastle United are to be better, to be bigger, to be the best. We have an ownership now who've used those words openly. We want to be number one. Well, then you're going to have me yakking in your ear telling you how you're not number one until you are number one. And I mean that as your friend, not as an enemy. And that's because, again, these are the memories we make along the way. And this is what I love about our club and you lot and everybody else.
Great stuff. Lovely,
Steve,
passionate stuff.
Sorry,
yeah,
Steve.
go on, George.
At the beginning, when Steve mentioned Malcolm Dix, I nearly went into the rant I went with you this morning about Malcolm Dix. Do you want us to say it again, or will I leave it?
No, leave it for the show. We'll keep that for the show, mate. It's already recorded. We'll have to move on anyway. I'm just checking the cricket. It is out. So Australia 288 for 9. They lead by 5 runs. This is going to be an exciting test match. I hope the rain doesn't spoil this one. Okay, as always, plenty to get through. Here is that music. If you don't like it, turn your music, turn your volume down. Chaz sent us this in. I've lost his actual message as well, but it was at an event in the Northeast. He met Ando. So there we go. Thanks for that, mate. He did send this photograph in as well. It was some kind of presentation night. So he put the ladies on as well. So thanks for that, mate. Thanks for sending it in. I did lose your tweet amongst the tweets, I think, or your Facebook message, whatever. And as most of you will be aware, there's been some fantastic photographs all over social media. And here's Mark Byers, who's in the chat. And Mark, I've mislaid your photo with Jimmy Moore. So I will put that up probably on the fans forum. But this is you with Shola Amiobi. Great to see so many of our regular viewers who live in America getting the opportunity to meet a Newcastle United player, legend, or current player. So great to have those in. Thanks for keeping them coming in. I've got a little backlog now, but if you've met anybody from Newcastle United, past or present, send them in and we'll feature you on the show. Okay, Chantal, I know if you're still in the chat, I've gone 1 hour, 11 minutes and 6 seconds without mentioning the tickets. I'm going to have to mention it now. Steve Hasty, we'll come to you. We'll keep the best to last on this one because I know he's got plenty to say. Look, the season tickets are there. If you've got a smartphone, you had the opportunity to download it. There has been the membership application for those who are hopeful of potentially getting a ticket this season. There's been a lot going on. Seller Cup, they keep pushing it. It's not selling as well as they probably hoped it would. They're doing everything they can to try and get that across the line. But in a nutshell, Steve, how are you feeling about the whole situation with tickets? I'll give you the one thing that I've said on numerous shows, and this is all I'll say on the ticket matter, is ultimately what they should have done this season is, for me, allowed the hard copy of the season ticket to still be available, sent out to everybody, but they should have rolled out the downloadable digital ticket and given you the option of getting it and sorting it out. At the minute, looks like we've got a few issues, a few problems, a few teething problems. They are going about things, I think, behind the scenes. That if you read all the stuff, all the stuff on the website, they're allowing you to go up and test your phone to see if it works. You've got to apply to go and do that. They're doing a lot more than I thought they would do on this matter. They're not just saying, look, just turn up for the Aston Villa game and it's going to be a right mess. But I guess there's a feeling that some people might struggle. There might be an issue. So overall, what's your view, Steve, on this ticket situation?
They would have been stupid not to put stuff out, wouldn't they, Steve? To say we're going to try and help them, we're going to try and alleviate some of the problems. Because can you imagine a 5:30 kickoff live on TV, first game of the season, and hundreds, if not thousands, are locked out because they can't get in because of the ticketing system. So they need to spend the next fortnight making sure that the system works as best it can. They haven't trialed it, and I agree that it would have been far, far better if they'd brought this in over a period of the season. I think that would have been the sensible, but instead they've gone for the big bang. I'm always worried. I worked in industries where IT changes happened, and you're always wary of something that's not phased in. You're always wary of the big bang because basically you're shutting everything else off, and you're hoping that the system's going to operate as you've designed it. And let's face it, the worst thing you can do is make a presumption, because it's the biggest of muck-ups that you can possibly have to presume that everything will go well. So yes, the next fortnight is really that communication in terms of trying to alleviate as much as possible the worries and concerns that fans will have. But perhaps it would have been easier if they hadn't have done that in the first place. I also think, personally, I think some of the reasoning and the rationale behind going for the big bang and going for a ticketless system to say that it's to do with the environment. It's to do with environmental concerns and trying to meet targets on environmental issues and all of this type of thing. It doesn't wash with me. How much impact is it going to have on the environment if 52,000 plastic tickets aren't printed, most of which people like to keep because it's a souvenir? We talked about memorabilia before. I bet we've all still got copies of all our past season tickets somewhere in a drawer. I know everybody, we used to collect match tickets. Then we collect our season tickets and our little wallets and that type of thing. And now that era's gone. You don't have that anymore. You don't get tickets for concerts. You don't get tickets for matches. It's interesting that they'll still have to have paper tickets for away games, I would imagine, because you're not going to have a compatible system. So that aspect, does sort of like grate with me. We've had opening conversations with people who are saying that they don't fit into this category, they don't fit in that category. What happens? Yes, they put a great Q&A, that great answers to various scenarios, but there will be dozens of other scenarios that will crop up, and not everybody's going to be able to get up to St James's Park in the next fortnight to try and resolve issues and to check their phones. And I mentioned it the other day, that with the best will in the world, you can have the finest of processes in place, but when you end up in a situation, as was commented on the Price of Football podcast a couple of weeks ago about the young blind fan who travelled travelled all around the world, all around the country. He was trying to hit all 92 clubs. He was a Lincoln City fan, and the club where he had one of the worst experiences of being able to watch a game, listen to a game, and enjoy the game as a blind person was at St James's Park, which I found quite sad in a way. And I thought, what a sad indictment on our football club when people can actually single us out. And he wasn't singling us out as out of spite or anything like that. He explained what had happened to him and how, he was basically handed a radio after half an hour and said, if you cannot see the game, listen to that and tune it in yourself while you're on that type of thing. I'm thinking, whoa, what sort of level of service and customer service?
Radio Newcastle, I think it was. Steve.
Yeah, Radio Newcastle. And like you said, there's a big difference between listening to a game on a radio and listening to a game on a radio system that is designed to actually describe what's going on in a game. That's the important bit. Matthew Raisbeck can commentate on a game for the able-sighted, but when it comes to those that don't have able sight, they need an awful lot more descriptive system to be able to keep a watch on the game, keep an eye on what's happening, keep abreast of where on the pitch the game is, where the ball is, and where the players are, and this type of thing. And it's an art. But getting back to the tickets, I think that there could have been an awful lot more dialogue. There could have been a lot more explanation beforehand. It just seemed to be like a big hit that this is what we're going to do. They had workshops. Nothing ever came out of those workshops, which I found disappointing. The club didn't report back. They didn't apparently explain to some people at the workshop, or some fan groups have been informed about how it's going to operate, but they haven't put that message out. They're now telling us how it's going to happen simultaneously to the club, yet they've obviously been in discussion for a while. Whether the canvassed opinion among the members or canvassed opinion among their fellow supporters, I'm not too sure. Well, it would appear that they hadn't, because this is the first we're hearing about it. Now, again, after the horse has bolted, it's like, you're all doing very well. Mr. Slocum down at the bottom, or Mrs. Slocum, she'll remember the programme well. You've all been doing very well, said young Mr. Grace as he wandered around. That's fine, but telling people they're doing well and people actually doing well, two totally different things. And I think that the club needs to listen to a wider, more broader group of fans. I think there's an awful lot of fans being left behind. I'm listening to. I got word of fans who are in the Platinum Club, who don't know what's going on there, because some of them have got 4 tickets that they're only just finding out now. They want to know. I heard of one group in the Platinum Club, believe it or not, with 4 tickets, all pensioner tickets, all bought at the same time, and have only just discovered after 10, 15 years that they're all paying different prices. They were all bought at the same time, but they've all got different concessionary prices linked to their ticket. And none of them are going to complain, because the ones who are paying high don't want to complain, because they don't want the club to go, oh yeah, it's the others that should be paying more, and vice versa. So nobody wants to rock the boat. But you're thinking, what's been going on? What's happening in this football club in that respect? We've got new owners, but we held this conversation midweek, didn't we? When do we stop calling them the new owners? They're the owners. They're responsible. The executives at the club are responsible for running a tight ship, for running a proper ship, and running the football club. And remember that the supporters are the bread and butter to them. You've got to keep the supporters happy. You've got to do things, and you've got to make decisions. And some of them will be difficult, but you've also got to make decisions that cover the broad spectrum of fans who follow the football club, all the little foibles, all the little idiosyncrasies that may occur. And I just feel as though sometimes there are people in the fan base. If you criticize anything to do with Newcastle United in the minute, you're on a hiding to nothing. And I'm sure Mitch will expand on that, because this is a conversation that we've had. As soon as you speak up on social media that something's gone wrong, it's like you get hammered with, how dare you say that? They're new. They're just doing their bit. let them bed in. It's been 2 years nearly. This is the start of the third season. So, things should be getting right off the pitch as well as on it. And I know, yes, we all want it to be right on the pitch, but there's an awful lot that needed to get right off the pitch as well.
Yeah, okay. Australia all out 295, 12 lead for Australia. Finally poised that Ashes test. England, of course, can't win, but a 2-2 in the series would be well deserved the way that they've played. George, the ticketing scenario, Mark Ritchie says, I agree, Steve Hasty, now to do with paper. They're trying to capitalise on season tickets not being used by selling it back to the club so they can sell it for more money. All to do with financial fair play, not daft. What's your views on this ticket situation, George?
Well, I don't buy the FFP thing in terms of ticket money, I've got to say. If we're so desperate we're going to have to bleed with fans, we're in serious trouble. Well, it's interesting. My personal experience has been interesting because, as you know, you lads know, since last December, a lot of that time I've been blind. And periods of time when my sights come back, it's fine. I can try to use my computer, but something in the back of my head switches off and my eyes go. And of course, in that moment, I could be pressing all buttons to do all kinds of things. And I have done. All sorts of funny messages have gone out from here. So when it came to getting my season tickets renewed, I had to rely on Steve Hasty and John Justice Allen to come to my house and do it for us and put it in. And it's not because I'm a duck egg on tech stuff, because I've been using it since the university got its first bloody computer over 60 years ago. But that means I know there's a demographic which is made, I think, demographic, might not have a smartphone, might not want a smartphone. How do they cope? And all that sort of thing, and all the other things that might not have a computer, can't even download it if they want to. And that seems to me they're the easy things, or sorry, the simple things that should be ironed out before you start doing all the heavy stuff, the tech stuff. And the easiest way to do it, you lads have hit on it. Let's roll out this season's ticket with the ones that we've got, the cards, and alongside it, you can do it on your phone if you want to. And if you haven't got the phone, well, we'll think of some way of helping you. So that's the bit that bothers me, is that we're in danger of disenfranchising a certain demographic that hasn't got the technology to keep up, and that would be terribly sad. I mean, you can imagine how I would feel, supporter for 76, 77 years this year, and I was to lose my ticket and I went in ticket just because I couldn't press the right button on a computer. Gosh, I'd be angry. I'd be angry, I really would. So, yeah, they're doing lots of things right. My worry is some of the things that off the peel that they're doing in terms of ticketing and away tickets and consulting and all that sort of thing. My worry is the consultants being a means to an end. They've consulted to get the answers they want. And that's very worrying at that end for supporters. So I'm not impressed with that bit. It does worry me that they can now tick the box and say we're consulted, and then go off and do what the devil they like. And that is worrying in some ways, and doesn't need to be. The system as well at St James's, I've said to you lads before, I'm not a computer specialist, but I would be disappointed if I couldn't go into the university and find a second-year computer student that couldn't produce a ticketing system that would do everything they want to do. It isn't rocket science, as they say. So they're the things I would want them to put right. In fairness to them as well, though, they've got to get the staffing right, because I suspect there's some Ashley Moles in the place who aren't helping. But it's they need to start looking at some of the little bits that's wrong. And as I say, danger of getting rid of losing the support of people in various demographics like my own. I'm lucky I've got people I can call on to come and help us and so on. But I also can feel for the lad, the story Steve told about the blind lad. I mean, I've my experience of sitting at St James's Park with with no sight, it was difficult. It was difficult. Getting out even more difficult. Worried to death that I was going to pull Steve Hasty down the bloody stairs with us. But never mind, that's another issue. So no, get the little bits right, and then you might have a chance. But at the moment, get the little bits right, and stop saying you're consulting when what you're doing is actually asking the people that you know will give you the answers you want, and that's quite worrying for me.
Lots of questions coming in. I've stuck the link in for the website because we can't answer the questions. The website, Newcastle United's website, there is a FAQ section, so you can find out on there. The club said they'd always keep a number of tickets for general sale. Do you know if that's still the case? Somebody else said, will he be just no, it wasn't a Steve Bruce one. It was I must have lost it. It was about the tickets, other stuff about the tickets. There was something about memberships. That's it. It was a tweet. Yeah. Current members should have been given the chance to renew. They may miss out altogether now. Imagine that being done to season ticket holders, says Paul Palpatine on Twitter. Loads of people who have got an opinion about this, Mitch. It's divisive. It causes problems within the fan base. People argue. Some people sit back and some people sit back and go, well, I'm all right, Jack. A lot of people expecting something from you tonight. Give us what you've got.
That to me is the biggest problem. I'm all right, Jack. And I think it stems from some of that. I think we saw a little bit of that with the Carabao Cup tickets as well. I'm all right, Jack. The mate's all right. I've got a ticket. My mate's got tickets. Yeah, that's a great system. Is it really? Is it really being consulted? Do the club know what they want to do and they're just going to do it and they're going to ask the questions to get the answers they want? I'm not convinced by the dialogue as being anything other than lip service. What was the driver behind the pace of change? Why did it all have to be done in this close season? For me, the best way to deal with this would have been to say, by next season, we want to be totally digital. And this is how we plan to do it. And we're going to phase it in over this season. And during the phase in, we will find out all the ways it doesn't work and all the ways it does work. And it would have been easy. There just seems to be an alarming desire to get it done this summer. Now, if that is a Premier League requirement, and we've been left behind the 8 ball by Ashley's inability to run a club properly, and they're trying to fix that, I think we'll all say, fair enough.
Yep.
We've dealt with enough of that shit. But I don't believe that that's the case. I look at the way they've handled it. I look at things like you've talked about the Q&A on the website. One of the questions is, what happens if my phone runs out of charge? The answer is, keep your phone charged. That's condescending. Sorry, that's taking a piss. That's not a nice answer. That's not a helpful answer in any way, shape or form. How many lads lose their phones at the weekend when they're pissed? And yes, using tickets in your wallet and your phone. What are you going to do? How's that going to work out? You haven't just got a not charged phone, you've got a lost phone. Where's that going to go? There are so many scenarios that just may have been touched on somewhere in the planning, but we've not been told about it, and I don't know why. I don't know why the desire to drive it so quickly. That's the bit that irks me the most. Other things within ticketing that irk me is, as a season ticket holder, I feel taken for granted. I feel devalued. I'm not allowed to have a membership. I'm not allowed to be a member. I'm not allowed to buy extra tickets for my friends and my family. And people see that as a good thing. Time was being a season ticket holder got you many graces. Now maybe as times do move on, and I'm not a Luddite. I'm really not. I'm quite happy to see digital change. I'm quite happy to go forward. In fact, did I not talk about my experience of coming to London for the Carabao Cup final from Dubai? And the only bloody place I needed a physical ticket was to get into Wembley. I got on a plane at Dubai with a virtual ticket in my wallet on my iPhone. I then got off at Stansted Airport and got into the Stansted Express with the digital ticket in the wallet on my iPhone. Went down and met Stu and all the lads and got absolutely hammered and had another load of good times that are the memorabilia, the things that I treasure the most. and had a great weekend, spoiled by 90 minutes of football. And the only time I actually needed this stupid bloody bit of paper was to get into Wembley. And that actually affected our day because there was a cock-up with some of the lads' tickets and we had to get to Wembley early so they could go to the box office and get their tickets. Crazy. Really? Yes, if there's a digital option there, then, you know, it should be the case. My other problem at the minute as well is I know of people who've contacted people in the club who should be able to give answers to these things. And the reply was, I'll talk to you when I'm back from my little jolly in America, and that's wrong as well. To have everybody across there in the States having a little jolly while you're releasing the tickets, one of the fundamental parts of what makes us tick is having people in that ground, and having that ticketing right, and they've absolutely emptied it out for a little jolly to the States, which, you know what, some of them probably deserve. But the timing sucks, and it makes me look stupid. And when we've got the owner standing saying, we want to be number one, does this scream world-class customer service? No. Greggy. Does it scream we actually care? It doesn't even feel like it. We know people who don't have a smartphone. We know people who've then been told, well, the solution for you is you come and get a bit of paper from box office before the game. Chaos. That's crackers. To not have a backup plan, to not have a phased-in way of doing it. I'm not against it at all. Not one little bit. But it's the haste. When I see people saying things like, what a fantastic summer we've had, the pace of change off the pitch, we've got safe standing put into place. Did anybody ask for that particularly to be done this season? Is it a Premier League requirement? No. But something you've wanted to do to get a certain section of the fan base made happy. Right, we want digital ticketing. Well, who's benefiting from that? Right, we want to change how membership and season tickets work. So actually, season ticket holders get devalued a little bit and feel effectively taken for granted. And the membership's going to change. Now we're going to talk about ballots for tickets. We're going to talk about ballots for away tickets and home tickets. And some of the people who are totally against ballots for away tickets are totally for ballots of home tickets. Because depending on your point of view, whether you can have a ticket or not, you're going to jump into the bit that suits you. Because I'm all right, Jack. And that's what it's lending to. We've also got, which I can absolutely categorically tell you, and I'm not going to mention names or anything else, that there are certain groups of supporters who have the ears of people inside the club right now, and they are spending time lobbying to look after their own interests. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about me. They give a fuck about themselves and what them and their little group can get out of whatever's going on, be that away tickets, home tickets, whatever. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong, and I'll call it out on all levels. And it frustrates us immensely about where does this drive come from? Who is driving it? Who are you listening to? And why are you listening to them over doing a proper consultation? I'm totally not against change. I'm totally not against digital change, for God's sake. I live in Dubai, and this is self-styles itself as a digital city. Yeah. And there's things I can do with my smartphone here that is just ridiculous. And the amount of things that are now linked to my Emirates ID, I can ride the metro by waving the Emirates ID over the metro here, and it'll take the money out of my bank account automatically.
Yeah.
What's smart? It's just linked. It works. Bitter? No, I'm not bitter. I'm all for fairness for everybody and respect for everybody. And I think things have been driven here. It just feels far too quick. And there's no time taken to think about what the potential pitfalls are. If I was a betting man still, I would lay money on our opening day kickoff being delayed by 15 minutes. That's how worried I am about this. I hope to hell I'm wrong. But we've got a number of things that I see as fundamental: ticketing, and good God, custodian. I think we'll probably have a little chat about that in a bit, because I've got something I can chuck into the mix with that this week. That to me are fundamentals, and they've just been left adrift a little bit. And at the same time, when people have got questions, because people are going on holiday, people want to have them to know they've got their season ticket in place and everything for when they come in for the opening day of the season. They're going away on holiday, and the club's a ghost town because of the tournament in the States and everybody's over there. And I think the timing sucks. I think it's been managed very poorly, and I think all of we deserve better than that. And we certainly do deserve better than having people within the club who are acting the way that Ashley wanted them to act. And that still lingers and hangs around like a bad smell. And I would say to everybody, top and bottom in the club, you look at what's happening with tickets and you look what's happening with merchandise. Is that world-class customer service? And with the best will in the world, it's not. And when our inboxes are filled with questions that we can't answer, because it's some of the things are in those little grey areas, and it might only affect 400 or 500 fans. But why should any fan of Newcastle United be hindered because of a pace of change that is beyond their scope? I'm totally comfortable with it all. The only thing I'd like to know is, as an expat, as somebody who doesn't get back to the UK very often, I have a season ticket and I've held that season ticket for a number of years. And I'm now being told I can only share it 10 times. Okay, what happens after that? Are you going to take it out of office? Are you going to disenfranchise a fan who's paid money into this club blindly, effectively, through faith and loyalty and love of the club? I'm quite sure a chat with the box office will solve that out, or at least I would hope that. And I would hope the only answer I'm not going to get is computer says no. But too many people I speak to at the minute are getting the answer computer says no. And I know under new ownership, there will always be change. We talked about this on Wednesday night, and change management. Change always upsets people, even when it's changed for the better. We don't have a problem with that. Really don't have a problem with that.
I think this is an issue, Mitch. This is an issue the Blue Rhythm Boys brought up as well. You know, unlimited membership and a ballot system means some fans have paid £37 and won't get into a game.
Some fans have paid a £37 lottery ticket that will never win.
And how many people have done that?
And and you know what? Maybe a cute way to get more money in the coffers, but it's at the expense of a fan base that is clamouring for more. It really is so frustrating because we all are loving what is happening with our club at the minute. We're disrupting everything. We're sticking 2 fingers up to the man. We're getting hold of the Premier League and kicking them in the nuts. And we're doing, and yes, Ian, absolutely right. We're way ahead of schedule. And some of the practices do need to advance far quicker than we're expecting. But is really digital ticketing the most important thing that we need sorted out like this season, like right now? If it was a Premier League requirement and we were going to be in bother with the Premier League on the basis of that, yes, I'd just say, yeah, get it done. We've got to get it done. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Even if the club had told me a little pulpy in public and said that was the reason, I think we'd have all sucked it up and probably not bothered looking, because we were just going, oh, yes, it's the Premier League again. We are absolutely in our right to ask questions where they're due. And like I think Tom Lynch made the point before, we've had this Stockholm syndrome where criticism of the club means you're anti-owner, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Criticism of the club, in my opinion, means you love it so much you just want it to be better. And if you, as the club, can take that constructive criticism from your most critical friend, we all get better together. And that's what it's about for me. And that's why I've become so frustrated, because I'm getting messages from people I can't help and I don't understand. And so for me, I don't know where this desire has come from. But at the same time, I've got no doubt if I was at home at the moment, yeah, my ticket would be on my wallet on my phone, and I'd be, quite comfortable with it. No problem at all.
You'd be as happy as Dan.
Yeah. And you know what? The other challenge I have at the minute is the feedback I get from so many people who've been in some of these meetings. And I've been in some of these meetings myself, and I'm in another one on the August the 1st. We've got a meeting arranged that should have been done this week, but everybody's in America. So that meeting's been delayed. As the focus seems to be consistently, how do we increase our foreign fan base and visitors to Newcastle United? And if that's the sole focus of some of this, that's disappointing, because once again, I say to every season ticket holder, you are now being taken for granted. And that's not right.
Great stuff, great points. It's sad that it's, this is the first major issue that we feel that we've got with the club. It's up to them to address it when they get back from America, I guess, which could be too late for some people. I just hope things aren't as bad as we think it could be against Villa. Let's hope that they do manage to get things sorted sooner rather than later. The fact you can't print tickets off at home, you've got to have them printed off at the box office is another thing, So they are trying to change so many things at the same time. There is likely to be issues. Anyway, we've got 20 minutes, just under 20 minutes left. As always, we have to look at that. Some decent ones of you, Steve, this week. Steve Hasty looking like even the NUFC Matter show.
What the hell? God.
It's a broom, innit? A mop, sorry. A Hasty looking like. I do laugh that some people call you Hastings.
I know. Yeah.
That'll be an autocorrect thing, sure.
Chippers, so Steve Hasty's managing at the World Cup for Norway.
Cheers, Chippers.
And Melbourne says drag queen Hasty.
That's about the cure, isn't it?
Who says that him? Fucking hell.
Steve Hasty manages the Nigerian women's team, says Chippers.
Oh, yeah,
really watching the Women's World Cup, Chippers. It wouldn't be Friday without a couple of dogs. There's one, Steve.
Excellent.
And there's another from Jimmy. Incarcerated behind bars. And Jimmy said this as well, too, looking like he Hasty the bounty hunter.
Oh, Jimmy, man.
And I didn't think you'd like this one.
Oh, hey.
Definitely not. Okay, Rob Hannaway has got a certain vibe to it. Steve Wraith, this is like lookalikes. That's the Amigos at the top. Very good. And Stephen Kennedy said, if I didn't know any better, I'd swear that was Stu in the black and Mitch in the green next to Ashley and Bruce.
God.
Ricky Ponton's done well since he quit cricket. Natural sportsman. Yeah, there's a few people said as that, Albert. Brilliant, that man. Really, really good. And this one, Big Cook, Little Cook Chef and Ben Jacobs.
Poor Ben.
Quite obvious, this one from Stephen, Kate Bush, and Bush.
Oh, yeah, me.
And Mudrick and Buzz from Home Alone from Jacob.
Wow. Yeah. Very good.
Couple here. We've had the Harry Kane one before.
That bottom one.
Bottom was very good. See, not only you, Steve, that gets compared to dogs. And we've had
Exactly.
this one before as well. I don't mind showing it, Alan, because you sent it in. Piers Morgan and the woman from Home Alone, of course.
Yeah.
Stu Penman and George Dawes.
Oh, poor Stu.
And another Baldy, John Joe Shelby and No Ho Hang.
Wow.
I don't know why this was sent to us. Hot dog and the hot dog.
Oh, dear me.
Gary Glitter and David Essex from Stephen Kennedy.
See where he's coming from. Yeah.
No, that's not a lookalike, is it? Yeah. Lookalike Ben Jacobs and Eddie Howe.
It's Ben Jacobson and you.
Aye.
Snoop Dogg and a dog looking like Snoop Dogg. We've had that one as well. Beavers and Butthead and former Manchester United manager Louis Van Gaal. I feel old now seeing how these two have grown up.
Yeah, that is good.
It is.
Look like Mitch and a marked Veruca.
Oh, dear me. Oh,
that was after the Veruca lookalike. Boris and Boris.
Look where the saddle. Look at the point on the saddle. Christ almighty.
Jason and Scott Parker lookalike from Albert.
Hey, that is a Scott Parker lookalike, mind.
It is.
Albert's got some good ones today, hasn't he?
Wow.
And another lookalike, King Clancy and Alvarez from Wayne.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
Mitch and a teapot cover
Hey.
from Albert. And Ricky Pollock, and Brian Hartman. Ricky Ponton, isn't it? Yeah. And
Ricky Ponton, that's the same guy, isn't it? Aye.
It is, yeah.
Yep.
Lewis Dunk and the Cobra, Carl Froch.
Yes. Yeah, what a fighter he was.
And Beethoven and Jose Mourinho. That one's from Tom. Xavi and Josh.
Excuse me,
Radner.
folks.
Yeah, I can see that.
And Jason Statham and Arian Robin. That's a pretty good one, that. Like.
Not too sure on that one.
I liked it. Robbie Savage and Jedward. Melly Barnes and Keith.
Well,
brilliant. That.
There's a match made in heaven.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Sir Rishworth of Sunakshire, as I live and breathe. Look like from Alan Partridge's account. Last few. Tonali and Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, you can see that.
Dora the Explorer. And the winner this week, I like that one. James Franco.
Yes.
And Fabian Scher.
Very good. Very good.
Excellent. Great lookalikes. Keep them coming in. We'll feature some more next week. Go on, Mitch.
No, just a quick one. Just been saying something. If you just want to understand how important FFP is and why we're treading on the lily pads, Chelsea have just accepted a 8.6 million fine for an FFP breach about UEFA underneath the submitting incomplete financial information under Roman Abramovich. And Juventus have accepted a total ban from Europe for 23-24 on a separate financial case.
Because it suits them.
Yes.
That's because it suits them. Because if Juventus aren't playing in Europe next season, it means they don't have Thursday night games, which mean they can concentrate on the Italian league and get straight back into the Champions League when they would have had potentially a ban the following season. So basically, they brought the ban forward a season, and it's no longer impinging them because the legal ramifications would have taken us beyond the start of this season. So they would have been banned the following season. Now they've brought it forward, they've accepted it, but they've played the game. So Juventus are now banned for a season they were going to be banned for anyway, and will be straight back in, because what they've actually done is they've dropped out of the league the season anyway. they dropped out of the conference. They said they'd rather not play it and rather have that suspension brought into this. So they basically suspended from the conference. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That's the jiggery pokery that happens, Steve.
Makes a farce of it.
Yep.
Just a quick one. Here's the photographs of Jimmy. He met Kev
Kev,
out of the game this week. And Mark Byers, thanks for sending that, mate. He's still in the chat. There he is, with his lovely daughter. And seeing Jimmy. Lots of people over the moon to see Jimmy out there. So fantastic stuff. Okay, we'll finish off with a football question, lads. And Barry Hogan asked this at the start of the night. He says, I know that Stu wants Tierney, but I'm losing interest in Livramento. Who would you guys like as a left back? Should we go for Hall or somewhere else? Who would you like to see come in at left back out of those three, Steve? Or have you got another person who you would suggest?
You know what? Livramento seems overpriced. They're now saying 40 million, aren't they? Tierney, it would appear that the whisper was that he's either staying or he was going back to Celtic. I don't think Celtic could afford him, to be perfectly honest. It would have to be a loan deal, I think, for him to go back to Celtic. And I noticed that Arteta has been mouthing off this afternoon, saying that his squad's too big and he needs to reduce his squad. Yep. So I think
he's too big.
In play there, and it could be that Southampton's loss of not selling Livramento for the offer that were put in could potentially be Arsenal's gain if Arsenal need to offload players and we'll play cute and we'll get Tierney on slightly cheaper terms than we're originally expecting. You know, there's a young lad down at Bristol City, fullback that everybody's raving about, and I would like to have seen us gone in for him. But you know what? We've picked up some decent looking fullbacks, and young Murphy didn't look out of place during the week. You know, we've made an awful lot of Miley, but young Murphy looked decent. You know, and it looks like there's potentially a footballer in there, and that shows potentially that we're starting to get things right in the academy. But I think that I don't think that, and I understand why you're losing interest, and I think that's probably because of, well, they're just constant to and fro within social media where we're linked with everybody and his dog, and you know as well as I do, Steve. I think was it Dougie that was keeping a list for you? It was somewhere up in the
Harry, yeah. It was over 200.
Harry
will have it up for the weekend.
It was somewhere. You were way beyond 160, weren't you? The last
over 200.
202.
202. Well, there you go. How many were fullbacks? Maybe that's a question for the next show.
Yeah. Okay, Mitch, which left back would you like?
If you were to push his eye like Hall with Chelsea, he's the right age, malleable, shapeable, hasn't looked out of place when he's played in the Premier League. And I think for me, left fullback, he could provide something very interesting. What Southampton are doing with Livramento, if anybody's going to sign Livramento, it would be in the last moments of the window. Southampton, with the players they need or they would like to shift out, or they know that they have value in, they want the biggest amount for them possible. And they're not just going to give it up without a fight. They'll take every negotiation as far as they can to get as much out of them as they can, because they need money. They have an owner who effectively wants out, who's pretty much said he's not going to put any more money in. So player sales is their biggest asset, and they've got some players that are worth something. So maybe we've got to go down to the wire on it. It's not what we want. I think it'd be a fantastic addition to our squad. My understanding is that he's not just seen as a right fullback; he's seen as an option on the right-hand side up front.
Yeah.
And therefore, like you have to do with anybody who's had a major knee ligament injury, if you look at the stats on how players in impact positions come back from knee ligament injuries across all sports, they usually need a full year of recovery. And most of that's mental. Most of that is feeling that you are able to go into that challenge at 100 miles an hour and that your knee's not going to come out facing the wrong way. think my dad could probably tell you that. Like, how long does it take for you to trust a knee that's been badly injured to go back into a challenge with and think, well, am I coming out of this with my knee intact? But you look across all sports, the data seems to be you need a full year, absolute full year of recovery before you're 100%. So it would be a huge gamble for us just to pull our pants down and say, yep, there's 40 million.
Yeah.
Nah, we need to negotiate on that and squeeze Southampton until that pips squeak. They need cash. And so that's one that could rumble on. But for me, if there was a deal to be done with Hall, that's the deal I would be working on.
Yeah, the other aspect of Livramento is that there was a £25 million buyback clause from Chelsea. Now, obviously, Chelsea wanted to buy him back, and the lad said no. But I wonder, we've never heard anything that says there's also a sell-on clause if they can't buy him back, which might account for why it's gone suddenly from 30 to 40 million. Now, that's just me speculating, but that's the sort of thing that could well happen, because all of a sudden Southampton are thinking they're not going to get as much as they thought, so they're pushing the boat so that they still end up getting out what they wanted, which could have been 25, and there could have been, a lump for Chelsea as well.
But that shouldn't be our problem to solve.
No,
because we're cash rich. That's their problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a quick one, Mitch, on the strip scenario. I haven't got too much longer to go on the show, and I want to get your dad's views on the full back situation. But just in a nutshell, tell us what you did with regards to your order.
Oh my gosh! Right, okay. I've done two things in the last week. I made an order from the club shop when the third strip was made available to be delivered out here in Dubai, because I've heard so many things about international orders being a problem. And so I made that order the morning of the release of the third strip for a third strip and a polo shirt. I keep checking the tracking number that I've been given, and here we are a week later, and it's still quote unquote in process. So where this is going to go, God only knows. Because whenever I've bought anything from the UK to be shipped by DHL, it's here within 3 days. It's not rocket science. It's usually straightforward. Why the club shop and why Castoria are taking this time? Is this going to turn out like Simon and San Diego, when I eventually get a message saying the order's cancelled, I get a refund, and then I get DHL on the phone saying, where do we deliver these shirts to? Let's see. I'd like that one to be the outcome. But isn't that shocking? And again, comes back with what we've talked about. First-class customer service, is it buggery? The other thing I did, because I've had contact with guys from Noon here, the Noon Newcastle United store still is not up and running. You can't even get like a junior third strip sock off it. It's empty. When you click on it, it sends you to a sign-up page to say we'll email you when it's available. Me being me and me daft little mind, I looked on the Noon shop just for Newcastle as a search. And then lo and behold, there was a home shirt available to purchase, same day delivery. So I purchased it, and a little man on a bike brought it 5 hours later, and there it was, and it was right, it was proper. It's a Castoria shirt. It's actually no problems with the quality. Everybody's right, go size up, not a problem. Everything's spot on. But then I looked where it came from. It came from a company called NUFC. NUFC is a company out here that does sort of sportswear, trainers, outerwear, that kind of thing. Turns out NUFC was bought by Noon last year. So how does a subsidiary of Noon have shirts available to buy for delivery in Dubai ahead of the official sponsor of the club having no stock at all and not being able to service an order? And again, for me, is that a story? Is that Noon being clever, saying, well, look, we put an order in through various lines, and it doesn't matter whether we have it bought through a club shop or through NUFC, we still make the money. That's fine. However, I spoke to Sid, who was running the NUFC shop, a couple of days ago, and he's on holiday in the Maldives, and his holiday's been spoiled by the story because they're fucking him around. They're still not answering his emails. They're still not delivering the stock. They're still not in communication about what he can and cannot have. And he has a club's storefront as coming soon that you can sign up for, and you cannot buy jack shit. And they're one of our main sponsors of the club. And again, I'll come back to this. Is this first class customer service? And whether it's Castoria's fault or whether it's the club's fault, I don't care. Somebody needs to take ownership of this because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and again, it causes problems. Problems that there just was no. Yes, I am a Chiefs fan. Thanks, Mark. Chiefs. Anyway, it's an absolute mayhem because if we could do it through the official Noon store, we actually now, as Dubai Supporters Club, have a discount code. I've actually paid 50 dirham more for my shirt than I should have done. But it's just me, being the devil I am, making these orders, saying, well, let's see what happens. So my order from the official club shop is somewhere in the ether, and the one from Noon that was delivered by Noon but not serviced by Noon is in my possession same day within 5 hours.
Crazy.
What a cluster. What a cluster.
Absolutely crazy. Okay, George, finishing off with you, mate. I know you've got company, so I've got to basically just want to ask you about the fullback situation, Liverpool, Tierney or Hall.
Well, I'm not going to apologise about my company because it's a lovely girl called Helen, who's a magpie who I've sometimes been to the match with. In fact, she sits not far from us when she used to have a season ticket. So I'm not apologising for that because I'm delighted to see her. So it couldn't be better. The fullback's easy for me. I agree with Neil, Hall from Chelsea or the young man from Bristol City. Tell Southampton to get lost because they're trying to get over the odds for a player who's still isn't fully recovered from a serious injury, and that's got to be risky. And Tierney, well, as soon as I heard in the paper that he was looking to go back to Celtic, that he dropped off my radar altogether. End of. If he doesn't want to come, I mean, look at the difference of Harvey Barnes. As I say, look at him in America. He's kept himself fit and his interview. Fantastic. He knew where he was coming. I'm not going to get there off Tierney by the sound of it. And if that's the case, why bother? So Hall of Chelsea or the lad from Bristol City. That would be my choice. Can I do one more thing, Steve, while I'm busy?
Go on.
Something for the lads that you lads have talked about on here ahead of where I've talked. The ladies' cricket board, the women's cricket board, have asked cricket boot manufacturers for ladies to design a new sole with specifically designed spikes for ladies. What were you lads saying about football boots and all these knee injuries the girls are getting?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's great. Great. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, great stuff. Just a little announcement as well. The Champions League show was a big success, which is great. We are going to be doing that throughout the season as Newcastle progress into the competition. Different people on it each week to talk about the Champions League. Great to have Melly on last night. If you haven't watched it, give it a watch. We're also going to do a one-off NUFC Matters quiz between some of the regulars on the show. John, just as Alan has agreed to make to get us a trophy. So there will be a trophy handed out. So the way it's going to work is there is going to be an invite goes out. George is the first to record his tomorrow. I'm going to record them all. Then I'm going to stick them on the channel. I'm going to ask the questions. So I can't compete in the competition, but it's going to be a good one. There'll be 3 rounds. Your first round is a Newcastle United round. The second round is a general knowledge football round. And the third round is the picture board. Okay. So those three rounds, I'll tot up the points and the winner will be announced after all the shows have been put out there. So should be good. Looking forward to recording it with George at 10 o'clock in the morning. But thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks for all those great questions. And thanks to all the moderators as well. Over 500 watching continuously for 2 hours. Never take you for granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Some great topics. Thanks to Steve. Thanks to George. Thanks to Mitch. And a big shout out to Keith Patterson, who has had to step down. He's busy with their work, etc. So good luck, Keith. And as I said, the door is always open. Have a great weekend, folks. Enjoy the match tonight. We will be back 10 o'clock in the morning with those with their days. Until then, good night. God bless. I wish you well.
Good evening.
Cheers, everyone.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.